The wait is over, it's finally here, Toyota's first ever GR Corolla, the vehicle that many people said Toyota could never build. This is not just a direct competitor to, logically, the Volkswagen Golf GTI, but the Golf R and the upcoming Honda Civic Type R. This is a Corolla with 300 horsepower. In this video, I'm going to run through the specifications as we know them and run through the photos and videos that Toyota has released of their upcoming hot hatch. But you should know that I'm actually seeing the GR Corolla in person at the same time that you are watching this video. This has been pre-recorded, and I will have a more detailed video out to you of the GR Corolla in person sometime late Friday afternoon. So be sure and have your notifications on. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Now let's get back to the GR Corolla. This has been hotly anticipated ever since Toyota released the recently released non-American spec GR Yaris. That uses basically the same engine and transmission, although interestingly much less powerful in the Yaris. There were a lot of folks out there, especially Toyota detractors, that thought this was going to be a milquetoast Corolla hot hatch because it probably wasn't going to get all-wheel drive. It probably wasn't going to get as much power as some of the competition. In the GR Yaris, it gets 268 horsepower. The Corolla gets 300. So all those worries appear to be truly unfounded. Let's talk about the engine first, since that is truly the heart of any performance vehicle. This is a new 1.6-liter 3-cylinder turbocharged engine. It features direct and port injection, dual overhead cams, and produces 300 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. Now that 300 horsepower, that happens at 6,500 RPM, and torque comes in 3,000 RPM and hangs out at 273 all the way up to 5,500 RPM. The next thing you should know is that the all-wheel drive system really is a big twist for this. We aren't expecting all-wheel drive in the upcoming Civic Type R. This one is going to have all-wheel drive, and it's going to have an all-wheel drive system that's a bit reminiscent of hot hatches and hot sedans from a few decades ago. It's going to give the driver the choice of power balance, 60% up front, 40% in the rear, perfectly balanced 50-50 front and rear, or 70% of the power to the rear axle. That is really a cool twist, and something that we don't really see in a lot of vehicles out there. Even something like the current generation Subaru WRX, that's not going to get an STI version, by the way, so it's going to have a little bit less power than this. That does not have the ability to send quite as much power to the rear axle. If you were hoping for a slick new dual clutch transmission, you may be disappointed, but manual transmission lovers rejoice. The manual transmission is going to be the only one offered in the GR Corolla. No CVT, no automatic, no dual clutch transmission. Interesting twist here, it's going to be available with limited slip Torsen differentials in the front and in the rear. So not only can you send 70% of the power to the rear or balance it 50-50, but when balanced 50-50, it's going to be able to do limited slip mechanical functionality on both axles, really making this a really interesting rally-style car. Rallying and racing really seemed to be at the top of Toyota's priority list when designing this vehicle. Interestingly, this is going to be built in a new factory in Montomachi, Japan. It says it's a dedicated GR factory where they're just going to be building this vehicle at the moment. I suspect the big reason to put this in a different factory is because so much of the vehicle has changed versus the regular Corolla. Another interesting twist, this is going to have a 3-outlet exhaust system, kind of like we see in other vehicles in the sporty segment, but unlike we see in some of the Hondas, all 3 exhaust tips aren't going to be right next to each other. Instead, there are 2 outboard and then 1 in the middle. Now about the chassis, they say that this was based off of the GAC platform like the existing Corolla, but it doesn't actually use all the same components. It has more welds, different body panels here and there, etc., and slightly tweaked suspensions here and there, obviously tuned for more of a performance mission. And unlike the regular Corolla, it's going to wear much wider tires. It's going to come with Michelin Pilot Sport 4s in 235/40R18s. It's obviously going to have huge brakes, just as you'd expect. It says we can expect 4-piston aluminum calipers on both grades, with the rotors being ventilated and slotted up front. And then in the rear, we're going to get 2-piston brake calipers, with red painted calipers being optional if you get the Circuit Edition version. The Circuit Edition is really interesting because it appears like it's going to be getting basically a carbon fiber style roof. It says here it's a carbon sheet molding compound. It's forged rather than woven. So it's going to be similar to some of the carbon fiber roofs that we find in, for instance, BMW M vehicles, but likely achieved at a lower cost for the GR Corolla. It's likely going to drop the center of gravity down and, of course, reduce weight. Also reducing weight on the GR Corolla, we have aluminum hoods and aluminum front doors on all models. Other interesting details, all the vents around the GR Corolla apparently are functional according to their press release, including the ones on the rear bumper. Another interesting twist, we get a 12.3-inch LCD instrument cluster on the inside. That's definitely a first for the Corolla and very large really for this segment. If you take a look at some competitive vehicles from say Hyundai, etc., they have 10-inch instrument clusters. This is going to be 12.3. Although the infotainment system in the dashboard, that still appears to be an 8-inch display. Although the infotainment display is 8 inches and a lot of the dashboard appears to be common with the regular Corolla, the screen itself is the newer 8-inch screen, basically borrowed from the Tundra. It's also borrowing the latest infotainment software from the Tundra, the NX, and the Lexus LX as well. This is an online connected cloud navigation system now with full voice command functions, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all that other stuff there. Even though the only transmission on offer is going to be the 6-speed manual transmission, this still comes with Toyota Safety Sense 3.0, which includes radar adaptive cruise control, the aggressive lane centering system. It also has blind spot monitoring standard apparently on every version, and rear cross traffic detection. When the GR Corolla goes on sale a little bit later this year, it turns out you won't have to get the Circuit Edition if you want the limited slip differentials. You'll be able to get that as part of a performance package on the base version that just includes those LSDs. Then you'll also be able to add a technology package which includes an upgraded audio system, navigation, and a Qi wireless charging mat. There's also a cold weather package that includes front heated seats and a heated steering wheel, but interestingly does not appear to swap in all-season tires. You're on your own for that. I don't know about you, but I'm really excited to drive the new GR Corolla. Toyota, I think, has been rightly criticized for being a little bit too conservative with some of their performance vehicles, and that certainly does not appear to be the case with this vehicle. 300 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque, and a curb weight figure here that, according to this document, is going to be more than 200 pounds lighter than a Golf R. That is a pretty significant number. It means that at 3,249 pounds, this may be just about 100 pounds more than the last generation Honda Civic Type R, and the rumor mill says that the next generation Type R is actually going to weigh a little bit more than the last generation did. So by the time it comes out, I would not be surprised if it ended up being about the same curb weight as this, only with front-wheel drive, not all-wheel drive. And I am really intrigued by this fairly strong rear power bias that's going to be available through this all-wheel drive system. Toyota is likely achieving that by having an overdriven rear axle like we find in some Acura products, but definitely differently tuned to sustain that 70% rear power bias. 70% to the rear means this is going to have the ability probably to feel more like a rally car in many situations than we find from even the Golf R in normal driving situations. Now don't get me wrong, the Golf R is absolutely excellent. It is a blast to drive, but something tells me that the GR Corolla is going to be significantly less expensive than that Golf R. And of course, if you want a performance vehicle with Toyota reliability, that's only going to be one of those in this hot hatch segment, and that is going to be this new GR Corolla. As always, hit that subscribe button down there so you can stay tuned on all of my latest videos, again, including an in-person video on Friday, late Friday afternoon, because again, while I'm filming this, I'm preparing to actually head down and take a look at the new GR Corolla. So stay tuned for that. Find me over at facebook.com/AlexandAutos, where there will be additional updates there. And of course, over at alexandautos.com, there's additional web content as well. Twitter, Instagram, all those other social places. And I'll see all of you next week.